Welcome to Colonize the Ocean podcast, where we discuss oceanic colonization, exploration, and education with your hosts Adam Jewell and Brendan Traxler.
So let's talk about building materials. Why don't we? When we're talking about underwater habitats or anything we're putting in the water, the building materials that come into play are almost as vital as any other aspect of it. It's one of those things where, we've talked about it before. I think at this point in time, we've talked about pretty much most things to some level or another when it comes to underwater engineering, construction, etc. So let's just break it down real quick and look at the different aspects, materials, and ideas out there around those. Whenever we're looking at different materials, there's some key factors we want to keep in mind for all this. Obviously, putting something underwater, we want to look at the ecological impact from it. We don't want something that is going to have a byproduct that's polluting, that may be dangerous to the surrounding environment, etc. Also, cost is always a factor because we want to try to keep costs down. And then, as far as how easy it is to build with or repair with, these are all things that, when I'm thinking, hey, here's what we're going to do, that they go into play. And so some of them, my mind and my mentality have changed over the years, partially because of technology changes, partially just because of understanding and researching and understanding this stuff more. So I'm basically going to break it down to about three different ones because that's really what comes into play. And the first one is the tried and true that's been around half a century underwater stuff is metals and steels. But that's a wide range of different materials there, all the way from, just your standard steel to aluminums to titaniums. When you start getting into aluminum or stainless steel or titanium, you run into the aspect of, hey, it's not going to rust or not going to rust as easy, but they usually comes with a higher price point. So that's why steel still is the standard. And there's things you can do to steel to help cut back on corrosion or reduce that impact, and therefore you have some maintenance issues with it. But again, it's been around for so long that most of those things are just par for the course when it comes to steel structures in the ocean. You've got corrosion from salt water, you've got just wear and tear, etc. If you got a bigger budget, you can start looking at the stainless steels or the titaniums. That's going to mitigate a lot of that breakdown and the rust factor because they don't do that. But they usually come with a little bit higher price. So that's why they haven't really been used that much up to now. Another one, and really the one that's really changed my mind about a lot of things, has been concrete or cement or something along those lines. And in the past, it's because when you look at standard concrete that you may see out anywhere else, you think of like cinder blocks, or you think of just a concrete driveway or sidewalk or something along those lines, and how easy it is it cracks and how fragile it really is. But when you're starting to look at the marine levels of that, it becomes super pliable, sets up very quickly, a lower cost sometimes than some other metals. And it's also amazing for the environment too, because it is a great place for underwater life to attach to and grow. So it ends up being a multifaceted approach to underwater construction because it gives a bunch of different variables there. There are still some of the issues that you start to run into is that barrier from that concrete to whatever, whether it's a glass window or like how do you mount that in there? And that's when you start to have to get into unique ways of working around that situation. So over the whole and for the most aspect of like underwater construction, concrete's amazing. There's just some little fringe issues right there that you have to design around and work around that create points of failure or maintenance issues. But it's still, for a lot of people, it is the outright winner in this. Hey, what do we design with? And lastly, is plastics. And there's multiple different. Once again, it's a whole slew of stuff out there. Plastics, a lot of things you can use recycled plastic that you actually pull from the ocean, and you can make a great slogan around that and work with that. I know Japan has developed this plastic that breaks down actually in the water over time. Obviously not ideal for an underwater habitat, but if you had some aspects to your habitat that you may be, hey, this is a temporary type of thing, it'd be a great thing to build it out of, because it's going to break down and just dissolve and go out into the environment. And it's supposedly good for the environment. One thing you do have to watch out for with plastics is what does it do to the environment around there? And so that's why you have to use the correct type. And there are some that are graded for the ocean that don't have adverse effects. And again, kind of like concrete, it's very pliable. You can put it into molds. You can do a lot with it. And again, sometimes at a lower cost too. So there's a lot to be said for that. And when I didn't think about this at the very beginning, but it kind of falls into all these, is the 3D printing of it, because you can 3D print plastic, steel, concrete, all these, and that you throw that into your final version of whatever you're building there, type of thing. So again, technology has advanced over the years, making some of these more approachable or attractive to this idea of underwater habitats. I know over the years we've asked the question, and I'll ask it again. What is your go-to? When you are thinking about underwater habitats, are you thinking of the typical steel structure? Or are you thinking more of like maybe a concrete domed structure, maybe something plastic or 3D printed? All of them are attractive in my opinion, and they suit different needs for different purposes. What's your go-to?